Welcome back, everyone. Please welcome our next presenter. We have HAVN Life Sciences, Inc. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol HAVLF and on the CSE under the symbol HAVN, and is a biotechnology company pursuing standardized extraction of psychedelic compounds for the creation of APIs, the development of natural health products, and innovative therapies to support brain health and enhance the capabilities of the mind. So attendees, please submit your questions for HAVN Life Sciences through this web module. And let's all welcome its CEO, Tim Moore. Welcome, Tim.
Good morning. How are you today?
We're great. We're excited to hear your presentation. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks very much. And thank you for all the viewers for logging into this presentation this morning. I hope you're enjoying your day. I'm going to take you through a deck here, and then we'll have an opportunity for Q&A. So please submit your questions as they come up, and I'll be happy to address them for you. Let me start by just taking a couple of minutes and talking about myself and my background and what brought me to this industry. I'm a career packaged goods person, having spent 35 years in that space. I spent 18 years at Clorox. I spent 7 years running the North American Brita business, and I transitioned into the cannabis business approximately 4 years ago. Based on some personal experience. And just before I tell this story, everybody's okay today, but it hasn't always been that way. I have 5 sons. The oldest is 36, the youngest is 25. And I've dealt with mental health issues with them over the last 3 decades. 2 with anxiety disorder. I had a suicidal 14-year-old. I have a son with Asperger's. My middle son got hit by a drunk driver on Mother's Day 6 years ago, and was seriously injured. And thanks to doctors and pharmaceutical companies, he became an opioid addict. And I spent 2 years watching him slowly disappear into his couch. Ultimately, it was cannabis that saved his life. And frankly, that was my motivation for getting into the cannabis space 4 years ago. But when I saw the promise that psychedelics offer for anxiety, depression, PTSD, manner of other issues that people deal with, I knew this is the place where I wanted to spend my career, balance my career. You know, I believe that we're in the industry of hope. Frankly, for people today that suffer from anxiety and depression, the best that they can get is finding that combination, that cocktail of sometimes alcohol, sometimes cannabis, sometimes fentanyl, but their cocktail that gets them numb enough to get through the day. And I think that's the reason why we see so much suicide, is people just get tired of being numb. At any rate, that's my motivation for being in this space. Looking forward to helping people and being part of an industry that's going to change the treatment of mental health for millions of people. So let me get into the HAVN Life story. We have 2 paths to revenue. I'm going to talk about both of them. We have a psychedelics business model, and we also have a nutritional supplements business. And that dual-pronged approach gives us an expedited path to revenue, and also gives us a diversification across those 2 industry groups. The underlying mission statement, though, is around human performance and increasing cognitive health through evidence-based science. And we're working on that on both sides. So to talk through the 2 divisions, HAVN Labs, we're operating out of a GMP facility where we're creating naturally derived psilocybin to support the industry. We had the first Health Canada license just over a year ago. We got that to do research with psilocybin, and during that research period, we developed protocols around safety and quality that support our work around cultivation and extraction today. And we're working to develop formulations to support the industry. On the retail side, frankly, it's a very traditional consumer packaged goods business, but focused on cognitive health, using mushrooms and other plant-based products, launching a range of nutritional supplements to support people in that space. And I'll talk that through in a few moments. Given this diverse strategy, we put together a diverse team, and bringing together skill sets to support both of those. And we have a great team of operators. I mentioned my background. My Chief Science Officer, Gary Leung, has over 30 years experience in nutritional supplements, having been at Jameson Labs. He also has cannabis experience, having been the Chief Science Officer at AFRIA. So Gary is able to help us navigate both the regulatory as well as the chemistry side of things for a number of our products. Ivan Castleman is a third-generation cannabis person who spent the last number of years working with psychedelics. He has a PhD in plant-based compounds, and he's responsible for our genetics library as well as our cultivation protocols. Alex, the chemist, has worked in the cannabis space for a number of years and recently as in psychedelics, and he's responsible for our extraction and refinement processes. Gordon is our CFO and has significant public markets experience as well as a broad-based career in finance. Jenna Poser, our Chief Operating Officer, has over 18 years experience in nutritional supplements and has a wealth of knowledge to support that industry. And Juliana looks after our quality as well as compliance side of things and has a significant cannabis experience as well and has helped multiple locations to secure Health Canada licenses. Our board and advisory board brings a rich experience as well to support us. Vic Neufeld, who was at AFRI and previous to that at Jameson Labs, nutritional supplement business. David Mokler is from the University of New England, and David has been working with psychedelics for 4 decades and is a great partner to have. Alan Oberman has deep pharmaceutical experience, having run the Teva business, the Teva Americas, which is about $13 billion pharmaceutical business. Tim Laidler is a veteran and served in Afghanistan, and he's helped connect us with a number of veterans groups. And we'll talk about veterans again in a couple of slides here, but very important cohort, the veterans groups. So we've matched our science team with some great operators. And so the way we look at this is our path to market. On the retail side, it's not only our HAVN Life brand with both retail and online, but also as a contract manufacturer. And we just announced last week our partnership with Woke Pharmaceuticals in Australia and New Zealand to be our distributor in those markets as well as into China. On the HAVN Lab side of it, it's around a supply chain of naturally derived APIs to support the industry. So both on the supplying academic research, but also formulation for therapies for preclinical trials as well as for psychedelic-assisted therapy clinics. What brings the opportunity to us on the psychedelics, is the convergence of 3 significant trends. The first is mental health, a huge and global issue, mental health and growing. 11% of the population has mental health issues of some consequence. There's billions of dollars spent on pharmaceuticals and on therapy. There's billions of dollars of lost productivity. And frankly, the problem is getting worse. Specifically post-COVID, I believe we're going to see an increase in mental health issues, not only from people that were directly affected from it, people like, Chris Cuomo that now suffers from clinical depression as a consequence of having COVID, but also just having lived through this and the consequence of this event on people's lives, whether they lost a job or lost a loved one or lost their business or couldn't visit somebody in the hospital, couldn't have a funeral for them, had their wedding plans upset, or just living stuck at home, trying to work from home and run a household and educate your children who are on remote learning. All of that is bringing a great deal of tension to people and causing them emotional stress. And then the first responders, of course, have been under battlefield conditions for 18 months. I mean, when was the last time we built temporary morgues? I don't remember it in my lifetime. At any rate, mental health is a large issue. The second trend we're seeing is the attitude towards mental health. It wasn't that long ago that we just called these people crazy and put them in asylums and sanatoriums. And with decades of public service announcements and with celebrities talking about mental health and other things that have ongoing, it's now okay to not be okay. It's okay to talk about it. So you have more people coming forward and seeking help. You have people having open dialogue about getting treatment for their anxiety or their depression. And then the third trend is the evolving public policy and public policy makers recognizing those first 2 trends. So you've seen things like Oregon and Denver and Ann Arbor and Washington, D.C. decriminalize psychedelics. You've also seen an increase in the end-of-life compassionate use exemptions that have been granted currently to cancer patients to seek psychedelic-assisted therapy for end-of-life anxiety. We're going to see more of that, and we're going to see more policy evolving. A few weeks ago, we saw the DEA increase by 50 times the amount of psilocybin that researchers can have on hand, because it was recognized that the small amounts that there were approved before simply weren't enough to support the kind of research that needs to be done. So we're seeing things evolve. I mentioned earlier veterans, and it's a group, a cohort, as I said, that has specific problems. They're not the only cohort, but they're a very well identified one. And it's a sad statistic that we've had more soldiers commit suicide than have died in the field of battle in the last 20 years. In the United States, this year alone, there's been over 6,000 veterans commit suicide, and yet that's not seen as a crisis by many people. And yeah, I believe that will be seen as a crisis. And it's my expectation that veterans as a cohort will be a group that will be identified, that will be granted access to psychedelic-assisted therapy, and that there will be opportunities there. So HAVN Life has partnered with a group called Heroic Hearts in Canada, the United States, and the UK to do work with veterans groups to assist them to get therapy. We also work in the UK with the Conservative Drug Policy Reform Group to try to get psilocybin rescheduled so that it can be used more broadly for research and for therapy. So what we're working on and where we're headed is, we're going to secure a dealer's license for a lab in Vancouver. I'm going to talk about what we're doing today, but then we'll be supplying psychedelics to these various research studies, and ultimately as a supplier of API to formulators when products get to the point where they're in broad use. And it's important to note that psilocybin's not illegal; it's just highly regulated. I mean, just like guns and alcohol and cigarettes aren't illegal, they're just highly regulated. And frankly, as an industry and a company, HAVN Life, we embrace these regulations because it ensures a safe supply for patients. And for companies that are able to navigate it, it also, frankly, is a barrier to entry. And we've been able to assemble the intellectual capital to navigate the path here. What we're currently doing is we're operating a facility in Jamaica because in Jamaica the laws are different. Psilocybin is seen as a functional food. It's kind of like coffee has caffeine in it, which I guess arguably is a drug, but we look at it as a functional food, and Jamaica looks at psilocybin that way. What we've been focused on, though, is coming up with a GMP compliant product. And as I said, we've spent over a year doing research for our SOPs on that. It's frankly easy to grow mushrooms. I mean, you just unplug your fridge and wait 3 days and you're growing mushrooms. But to grow them in a GMP compliant way so that they can be used in an FDA trial, that's hard to do, and that's where our focus has been. So we're cultivating and doing our processing in a GMP compliant facility and working on exporting from that facility. There aren't currently any GMP protocols for naturally derived psilocybin. We're developing those. The industry and HAVN Life is focused on microdosing. So I don't like the term microdosing. I would prefer therapeutic dose, because nobody microdoses Tylenol or Zoloft. You take a therapeutic dose. So there's a therapeutic dose which provides benefits to the patient, and then there's a psychedelic dose. And the magic here is finding that therapeutic dose and protocol so that you can have a patient take this on a regular basis to treat them without them having the sometimes frightening and often disruptive experience of a psychedelic incident, which can cost you a day or a weekend. So microdosing is a much better patient model and much better business model, frankly. Switching over to where we're going with this product, we've signed a number of supply agreements to service multiple groups, whether they operate retreats in places where it's legal, like Costa Rica, Jamaica, Antigua, or psychedelic-assisted therapy. Like we have a partnership with Atma Journey Centers in Calgary, which is the first facility in Canada to administer psychedelic-assisted therapy to an end-of-life compassionate use license holder. And then the third group, obviously, are the companies that are doing drug development who are in preclinical trials or clinical trials, and as a supplier to them. And as I said, that's currently coming from our facility in Jamaica, where we've navigated the export rules, and we're working in Canada, the US, and the UK on the import rules, and we hope to have announcements on exports from Jamaica to our supply agreement customers before the end of 2021. Moving on to our nutritional supplement business, we're leveraging a very well-established consumer behavior. 74% of consumers take nutritional supplements on a regular basis. Personally, I take tart cherry for my gout and glucosamine and chondroitin for my arthritis. So for somebody like me that's got that daily habit, to add a reishi or a shag or some other mushroom or plant-derived product to help me with focus or to help me with anxiety is an easy step. And so it's, at HAVN Life, we're leveraging this consumer behavior with our range of products. And functional mushrooms within nutritional supplements are the fastest growing segment, expected to be $34 billion on a global basis by 2024. So it's a large and emerging growing segment that we're participating in. So we're very much focused on retail and e-commerce and growing that business across multiple markets with products that are currently providing increased mindfulness, decreased stress and anxiety, as well as immunity benefits. We've launched our first 7 SKUs. They are in distribution in Western Canada, with the footprint continuing to grow. They're available on our e-commerce website, yourhavenlife.com, and we're shipping from Canada to the US from that site. We also have a listing on the Amazon.ca site, as well as the well.ca site, which is the largest nutritional supplement e-commerce site in Canada. And we're continuing to grow that footprint. As I mentioned, we've signed some white label agreements where we'll be using our formulas and shipping to under other brands. The most recent one, as I said, was with Woke Pharmaceuticals for Australia, New Zealand, and China. And we're expecting that shipment to be early in calendar year 2022. So what's coming up? On the HAVN Lab side, it'll be our first export to Canada and to the US. We'll continue to grow our supply agreements, and we'll see revenue from those supply agreements in the coming months. We'll get our dealer's license, and we'll complete our facility in Vancouver, and then we'll just work on expanding scale and capacity to service our various supply agreement customers. On the HAVN retail side, it'll be expanding our retail footprint, as well as our e-commerce footprint, and adding SKUs. Functional foods is the next thing that we're going to be launching. We recently acquired a patented formula that is effective on concussions and traumatic brain injury. It's being used by 18 professional sports teams as part of their brain health protocol, and we'll be rolling that product out under the HAVN Life brand and looking for other opportunities as well. Our market cap right now is up under 50 million Canadian. There's lots of upside there. We've seen a bit of a bear market on psychedelics in the last few months, and we see opportunity for significant shareholder wealth creation as we move forward. I also see a lot of opportunity for M&A activity. A lot of the assets are going to be cheaper to buy rather than to build. We also expect that the consolidation is going to be required because there's been a lot of companies come into this space, and there isn't going to be room for all of them to, frankly, to thrive over the next 3 to 5 years. We have about 150 million shares outstanding. We have a clean balance sheet. We have no debt. We've been very responsible with our cash flow to make sure that we are able to manage our way through this and raise capital when we want to, not when we need to. And that's the benefit of having people with a couple hundred years of experience in business to be able to do that. I'm now down to the mice print, so I'll turn it back for any Q&A, and we can. And I'm happy to deal with the questions. So thanks everybody for listening, and I look forward to whatever questions you have.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, we have a question from Vince Carroll. He wants to know, what milestones should we expect from HAVN Life in the next few months?
I think that the next significant milestone will be successfully exporting from Jamaica to one of these countries where psilocybin is a controlled substance and where the rules are fairly significant to navigate. And as I said, that I think is a milestone that we'll achieve before the end of this calendar year, and I'm pretty excited. On the nutritional supplement side, I think the next milestone there will be actually getting into material revenue. We're still in early days with that, and our revenue, frankly, is small, but we're working to change that. So that'll be the next milestone, is the ability to report significant revenue on our nutritional supplements.
Thank you for your answer on that. Here's a good one. Zach A wants to know, how is the psychedelics industry similar to and different from the cannabis industry?
I think the first and biggest difference is in the psychedelic space, there isn't a recreational play. It's purely a pharmaceutical and medical play focused on mental health. Cannabis has a medical side, but the big revenue is on the recreational side. I don't see that. In fact, I don't see a day that there'll be a psychedelics dispensary in Canada or the United States where you go and buy some shrooms and go home and have a psychedelic experience. I think this will be a prescription product, either in a clinical situation or at home under microdosing conditions. But there isn't a rec place. I think that's the first thing. The other thing is we don't have the state legal, federally illegal tension that cannabis suffers from. Everything that HAVN Life does and the industry does is completely compliant on a federal basis, either with the FDA and the DEA or with Health Canada. And so it allows institutional investors to come in and invest with confidence in the industry, because you don't have that federally illegal tension. And I think the third thing is that the psychedelics companies have done a better job of bringing business operators. And I think in the early days of cannabis, there were too many of the companies that, they had a grower and they had a stock promoter, but they really didn't know how to get to cash flow and build a business plan. And so I think that's why we saw the fallout that we did in the early days of cannabis. And certainly at HAVN Life, we've made sure that we've got the business operators to back the science.
Yeah, thank you for that. Alan Pena wants to know, what are the implications of the recent decriminalization in Oregon, Denver, Ann Arbor, and other jurisdictions?
Well, I think the first thing is it doesn't create a commercial opportunity for companies that are operating in the space. The fact that they decriminalize it doesn't mean I can start shipping product into Oregon. It's still federally controlled. But what it does do is it shows that the policymakers are recognizing that they need to lower the barriers. And, the war on drugs has really been a war on patients. In British Columbia in the year 2020, we had more deaths from opioid overdoses than we had from COVID. And we certainly didn't mobilize against opioid the way we mobilized against COVID. And so policymakers are recognizing that. And so I think that it's a harbinger of what's coming, that policy is evolving, and that policymakers recognize that the decades of great science that have been behind psychedelics shows it's a legitimate treatment for these various indications, and that we're going to see companies continue to have advancements, in their clinical trials, and that we will see someone get their drug approval. So I think that's what it is. It's a harbinger of what's coming with policy.
Mike P wants to know, and so do I, when do you expect psilocybin to be legalized?
Well, like I said, it's not illegal. It's just highly restricted. And I think that that's an important distinction. It's, I'm not Walter White operating underneath a laundromat. We're working in in legal facilities under very close scrutiny, and doing things in full compliance with the rules. So when will it be available broadly to patients, I think is the real question. And frankly, I think we're looking at a 3 to 5 year runway before that really happens. I think in the years between now and then, we're going to see more of these exemptions, whether it's for end of life or for cancer patients, which is what we saw on cannabis, approximately 8 years ago with additional exemptions. I think we'll see a group, potentially veterans, identified as a cohort that can get that kind of treatment. And I think you're also going to see these psychedelic retreats continue to grow. And if you want to see what that's like on Netflix, there's a show called Goop Labs from Gwyneth Paltrow. In season 1, episode 1, she takes her team on a psychedelic retreat in Jamaica. And it's a 42-minute show, and it'll teach you an awful lot about what that really looks like. And so I encourage people to watch that. But yeah, I think we're looking at 3 to 5 years before we see a significant commercial business for psilocybin as a treatment.
Interesting. I have seen that. Frank Ibarra says he doesn't see your news on the OTC markets. Can you look into a provider that distributes your news more broadly?
I will take that up. Thank you for pointing that out to me. I'll make a note of that right now, but thanks.
All right. And Pat Cisneros wants you to talk more about the agreement with Woke and what it will do for you financially over the next year or so.
So, Australia is a market of approximately 30 million people. So the nutritional supplement business there is, approximately the same size as it is in Canada. Australians are, I would say, a fairly healthy population, very active population. So they pay attention to that. So I think that we have good business for us in Australia. But the second opportunity is the shipments into China. There's a very well-established partnership between Australian companies and the Chinese. Chinese have a preference for Australian brands. And so Woke will be selling their brand into China under those conditions through existing relationships they have there. And I'm not at the point where we're prepared to provide guidance, but I can tell you that we think that business will be of a consequential size in 2022 and be a significant business in the years after that.
Fred DeLeon wants to know, what sort of approvals did you have to go through to be able to sell your retail line? And what other products do you have in the works?
So in Canada, you work through Health Canada to get a drug, nutritional product number. And you have to work within the guidelines on what ingredients can be used, as well as what claims you can make. And then you obviously have to have that manufactured in a facility that's compliant, a GMP facility, which we do. So we went through that. It took us, some of the products were approved in as little as 60 days. Some of them took up to 270 days, the more complicated formulas. The products that we're working on next, as I said, functional foods. We've developed a range of functional foods to launch, as well as this brain health product. The announcement we had recently was the acquisition of a company called Bennett's Choice, and their patented formula that's effective against traumatic brain injury and concussion. So that one we're working on reformulating that into a more convenient form and looking to expand sales of that beyond the current locations where it is. So functional foods, brain injury products that's what's on the horizon.
Tim, we are out of time, but we've got so many more questions coming in. So that means you just got to join us again on an upcoming conference, because this is really important technology. And thank you for sharing your personal story and connection to this important business you got. So thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Really enjoyed it, and have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, stay with us. We're transitioning to our next presenter. We'll be right back.